The poem Tiger, uh, written by William Blake. William the Tiger, written by William Blake. So, William Blake, a poet who, right in the 18th century, is lived in between 1757 to 1827. Blake was also called a transitional poet who, like Thomas Gray, contributed to the transition from the neoclassical to the romantic age. Essentially, Blake wrote social poetry where he showed a genuine concern for the oppressed class of people. The features of romanticism are found in Blake's poetry, like his interest in nature, identification with feelings of the common man, love for animals and non-human world. It is unfortunate what his work was neglected during his lifetime. William Blake, engraver, poet, and mystic, was the precursor of Romanticism. He presented the theme of his poem visually through a pictorial engraving. He wrote his poetry under two main heads: Songs of Innocence, written in 1789, and Songs of Experience, written in 1794. The first book contains Songs of Innocence, signifying the conditions of man before the fall. This is presented symbolically by images like child, comb, sheep, flowers, etc. The emphasis is on a child's words, a word characterized by absolute joy and freedom, a word of harmony and spontaneity. Experience stands for the adult word of exploitation, social injustice, corruption, and evil. Experience stands for the adult world of exploitation. So the images used in his book are snakes, thorns, spear, grave, blood, etc. Two poems of Blake are prescribed for your study. The first poem, Tiger, note that Blake was affected by the romantic, mystical, and revolutionary ideas of period of the French Revolution, but he was exceptionally independent. He saw visions and trusted them. His poems are remarkable for their delicacy and strength. So, Tiger is spelled with an C in some anthologies of poems and in others with a Y, such as Tiger. Such as Tiger. So, I read the poem Tiger, written by William Blake. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immoral hand or eye could frame the fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare is aspire? what the ant dare seize the fire, and what shoulder and art could twist the sinews of the art, and when the art began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet, what the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was the brain, what the anvil, what dread grasp, dare its deadly terrors clasp. When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamp make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal and are I, a dare frame the fearful symmetry. So the poem Tiger belongs to the second volume called The Songs of Experience. It's a complex poem which introduces you to the adult world of experience, a world where there is an intrusion of evil. The very title of the poem is mysterious with a strong oriental image. The poem begins with the picture of the tiger with its eyes burning bright in the night. The very nature of creation is invoked here, the tiger being a powerful symbol, then follows a series of questions. With the line beginning, what immortal hand are I? The dark forest is also suggestive of the human mind, complicated and unpredictable. It is here that the critics have drawn our attention to the influence of the French Revolution, which is symbolic of the spirit of revolution. The poet, wondering at the creation of the tiger, asked was immortal and would have created its fearful symmetry. The implication being that only some divine hand, rather than a mortal hand, would have created the tiger, which is both a work of art and source of terror. The word symmetry is combination with the adjective fearful brings out this suggestion. The fire image implied in the opening lines of the poem is developed in the second stanza. The fire in the tiger eyes, Blake seems to suggest would not be available on earth. He who created the tiger must have fetched it from some distant region, distant deeps or skies. The daring of the creator fills the poet's mind with a sense of mystery and wonder. And the poet wonders about the way in which the artist soared above to fetch the fire. In the lines, on what wings dare as he has aspired, what the hand dare seize the fire. So in this third stanza, the quarters of the work of art associated with those of the artist. Here, we learn as much about the ferocious animal, about its creator. The tiger derives its muscular energy from the creator because the creator also must have had the strength and energy of the tiger and energy of the And what art could twist the sinews of the art. So no ordinary artist could have stood before his fearful creation. And here there is a feeling of awe and wonderment. It is a momentous occasion when the art begins to beat and the creature comes alive. The fourth stanza shows the universe as a great smithy and God, the creator and the artist. As a blacksmith with a tremendous courage, in sheer amazement, the poet facts ask what implements could have been used to shape the tiger. What is hammer? What is the chain? In what furnace was Ray brain? What the unveil? What dread grasp? There its deadly terrors clasp. So note the words hammer, chain, and anvil, all implements that from an important part of the smithy. Then the poet brings home to us the effect of the creation of ferocious tiger on the universe. The guardian angels, that means stars, feel utterly helpless and wept for the meek lamb. They were saddened that the gentle lamb had to live with the cruel tiger. Could God, when be content with what he had done, could he smile with satisfaction at his work? The poet wonders how God could have created both the tiger and the lamb, much to the consternations of revolting angels. The poet wonders why God has created both good and evil. The tiger and the lamb are two faces of the same divine being, who is at once begin and awe inspiring. Here we have an allusion to the unsuccessful revolt of the angels against God in heaven and their subsequent fall. Blake seems to be unsure of God's creation. Does God smiles at the revolt for which he himself has created? The poem ends with the poet impressing on us courage of the Creator through the word dare, which is the poet's vision of harmony, good and evil. It's a mystic vision, especially in religious sense. This vision arose perhaps as a reaction against enlightened 18th century moralists who are fond of tracing a perfect and begin patterns in creation. Blake's poem seems to challenge this conception. His tiger has symmetry. It is fashioned by a divine craftsman, but it is unique, burning, awe-inspiring, and its symmetry is fearful. Blake wonders how can he be reconciled with the thought of a benevolent edition. Benevolent edition. So the poem begins with the speaker asking fearsome tiger what kind of divine being could have created it, what immortal hand or eye could frame the fearful symmetry. Each subsequent stanza contains further questions, all of which refine this first line. First one, From what part of the cosmos would the tiger fiery eyes have come, and who could have dared to handle that fire? What sort of physical presence and what kind of craftsmanship would have been required to twist the sinews of the tiger's sword? The speaker wonders how, once the horrible earth began to beat, its creator would have had the courage to continue the job, comparing the creator to a blacksmith. He pondered about the anvil and the furnace that the project would have required and the smith who could have welded them. And when the job was done, the speaker wonders how would the creator have felt. Did he smile his work to see? Could this possibly be the same being who made the lamp? The farm is comprised of six quarters in rhymed couplets. The meter is regular and rhythmic. It is amateering beats suggestive of the smiley that if the poem's central image. The simplicity and neat proportions of the poem from form perfectly suit its regular structure in which the string of questions all contribute to the articulation of a single central idea. The opening question enacts what will be the single dramatic gestures of the poem, and each subsequent stanzas elaborates on its conception. Blake is building on one conventional idea that nature, like a work of art, must in some way contain a reflection of its creator. The tiger is strictly beautiful yet also horrific. Its capacity for violence, what kind of a god then could or what designed such a terrifying beast as the tiger? In more general terms, what does the undeniable existence of evil and violence in the world tell us about the nature of God, and what does it mean to live in the world where a being can at once contain both beauty and horror? The tiger initially appears as a strikingly sensuous image. However, as the poem progresses, it takes on symbolic character and comes to embody the spiritual and moral problem of poem explores perfectly beautiful and yet perfectly destructive. Blake's tiger becomes the symbolic center for an investigation into the presence of evil in the world. Since the tiger remarkable nature exists both in physical and moral terms, the speaker questions about its origin must also encompass both physical and moral dimensions. The poem's series of questions repeatedly asks what sort of physical creative capacity the fearful symmetry of the tiger bespeaks, assumedly only a very strong and powerful being could be capable of such a creation. The smithy represents a traditional image of artistic creation. Here, William Blake applies it to the divine creation of the natural world. The forging of the tiger suggests a very physical, laborious, and deliberate kind of making. It emphasizes the awesome physical presence of the tiger and precludes the idea that such a creation could have been in any way accidentally or haphazardly produced. It also continues from the first description of the tiger, the imagery of fire with its simultaneous connotations of creation, purification, and destruction, the speaker stands in awe of the tiger as a sheer physical and aesthetic achievement, even as he recalls in horror from the moral implications of such a creation. For the poem addresses not only the question of who could make such a creature as the tiger, but who would perform this act? This is a question of creative responsibility and of will. And the poet carefully includes the moral question with the consideration of physical power. Note in the third stanza the parallelism of shoulder and art, as well as the fact that it is not just the body but also the art of the tiger, and that is being forged. The repeated use of word, the dare to replace the could of the first stanza introduces a dimension of aspiration and willfulness into the sheer might of the creative act. The reference to the lamb in the penultimate stanza reminds the reader that a tiger and a lamb have been created by the same God, and raises questions about the implications of this. It also invites a contrast between the perspective, perspectives of experience and innocence represented here and in the poem. The lamb, the tiger consists entirely of unanswered questions, and the poem leaves us to out the complexity of creation, the sheer magnitude of God's power, and the inscrutability of divine will. The perspective of experience in this poem involves a sophisticated acknowledgement of what is unexplainable in the universe, presenting evil as the prime example of something that cannot be denied, but it will not be withstand special explanation. Either the open arm of the tiger contrasts with the easy confidence in the lamp of child's innocent faith in a benevolent universal. So, what we gather from the poem is that only a divine artist could create this tiger, which is at once a work of art and source of terror. The creator also must have had the strength and energy of the tiger. There is a feeling of awe at the artist's ability to stand before his fearful reaction. Fearful reactions. At the turn of the 18th century, there was a reaction against artificial poetry. William Wordsworth, the well known romantic poet, brought about a revolutionary in poetry. The humble and rustic life and the preoccupation with primary feelings of mankind came to be associated with romantic poetry. Reason gave place to imagination. Some of these features of the romantic school of poetry were anticipated by transitional poets like Blake, Burns, Collins, and Cowper. And reason gave place to imagination. Some of these features of romantic school of poetry were anticipated by transitional poets like Blake, Burns, Collins, and Cowper. William Blake is a precursor of romanticism with his lyrical genius and interest in the common man. Two important aspects of the poem are mysticism for its inspiration, symbolism for its expression. They constitute its originality and graceness. It is about the poem Tiger written by William Blake. Now, another important poem of William Blake is The Chimney Sweeper. Chimney Sweeper. Yeah, we already give the information about the author. We're discussing about the author. Now, I'm going to read the poem The Chimney Sweeper, written by William Blake. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while at my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, weep, weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in suit I sleep. There is little Tom Dares who cried his yet that curled lamb back was shaved, so I said. Whose Tom never mind it, for when you add years where, you know, that the suit cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was sleeping, he had such a sight that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key and opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain leaping, laughing, they run and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Wash in a river, shine in a sun. They naked and white, all their backs left behind. The rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom, if he had be a good boy, he had have good for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awake, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags and our bus to brushes work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. So in the first and foremost, make note of the narrative techniques. The poet in the poem, the I, is a chimney sweeper who had lost his mother early in life. A boy who could not even pronounce the word weep correctly was forced into child labor. For survival in the streets of London, he would be walking around advertising himself so that someone might employ him for a day to sweep a chimney. With a tone of regret, he confesses that even before he knew what has what was happening and could scarcely utter the word sweep, sweep. So he was told to the profession of the chimney sweep. So destined to his fate, the speaker says he must work. So your chimneys I sweep and I suit I sleep. So thus by the end of the first stanza, we find that the orphan's misery is incomplete. In the second stanza, we read out about another chimney sweeper whom the speaker calls Little Tom Dares. Tom had cried when his head was shaved clean, and the speaker had tried to comfort him by telling him that a bare head was the need of because of all the suit would not spoil his attractive silver hair. Wish Tom never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the suit cannot spoil your white hair. So the third stanza recounts a dream that occurred to Tom. He dreamed that thousands of chimney sweepers, including his friends Dick, Joe, Nets, and Jock, had been locked up in a coffin. The dream is very ominous and sordid, which suggests the helplessness of the entire class of chimney sweepers. But there seems to be a ray of hope in the very next stanza, which explains how an angel appears and frees all of them with a bright key. So the following lines suggest a joy of freedom. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. So, but then we began to doubt how long his happiness would last. Would there be an end to their misery and suffering? So the dream sequence is continued in fifth stanza when an angel appears and advises Tom that is reminded a goodbye. He would have the blessing of God, which would provide him unlimited happiness. So, as the angel told Tom, if he had be a goodbye, he had have God for his father and never want joy. So, in the sixth stanza, breaks the spell of the dream, and Tom is back in the world of harsh reality. All the boys get back to work with their bags and brushes and brooms. In spite of the early morning chill in the air, though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm mainly because of the fact that he had a talk with the angel. Note how the poem ends with a message about being good and doing one's duty for achieving happiness, and that children need not fear any harm. The horror of social injustice is the theme of his poem. The flight of the child created an image and details of concrete physical action. The speaker is an orphaned child. The poet associates the cry of the child with suffering and shame. There is one terrible image that emerges from contrasting details of black suit, white hair, black coffin, bright sunshine, and the beautiful vision of hope and joy in Tom's dream. At all level, the poem is blanket indictment of society, but is not simply a social satire. It communicates the deep human feeling behind his hatred of the cruelty of man. Blake shows his compassion for the suffering. He finds a passionate sense of positive values in Tom's dream, sequences freedom, joy, community, in a word, love. In a word, love. So the speaker in this poem is a small boy who was sold into chimney sweeping because when his mother died, he recounts the story of a fellow chimney sweeper, Dacre, who cried when his ear was shaved to prevent vermin and soot from infesting. The speaker comforts Tom, who falls asleep and has a dream of vision of several chimney sweepers, all locked in black coffins. An angel arrives with a special key that opens the locks on the coffins and sets the children free. The newly freed children run through a green field and wash themselves in a river, coming out clean and white in the bright and wash in the bright shine and wash in the shine in the bright sun. The angel tells Tom that he is good boy. He will have the paradise for his own. When Tom awakens, he and the speaker gather the tools and head out to work, somewhat comforted that their lives will one day improve. The chimney sweeper comprises six quatrains, each following A, B, B rhyme scheme, two rhyming couples as per quatrain. The first stanza introduces the speaker, a young boy who has been forced by circumstances into the hazardous occupation of chimney sweeper. The second stanza introduces the Dacre, a fellow chimney sweep who acts as a foil to the speaker. Tom is upset about his lot in life, so the speaker comforts him until he falls asleep. The next three stanzas recount Tom Dacre's somewhat apocalyptic dream of the chimney sweepers. However, the final stanza finds Tom walking up the following morning with aim, and the speaker will tapped in the dangerous line of work. There is a hint of criticism here in Tom Dacre's dream, and the boy's subsequent actions, however, decries the use of promised future happiness as a way of subduing the oppressed. The boys carry on with their terrible, probably fatal work because of their hope in future, where the circumstances will be sent right. This same promise was often used by those in power to maintain the status quo, so that workers and the weak would not unite to stand against the human conditions forced upon them. As becomes more clear in Blake's songs of experience, the poet has little patience with palliative measures that did nothing to alter the report, the suffering of impoverished families. What on the surface appears to be a condescending moral to lazy boys is in fact a sharp criticism of a culture that would perpetuate the human conditions of chimney sweeping. Children, Dacre, Tom Dark, reflecting the sooty countenance of most chimney sweepers, comforted by the promise of future outside the coffin, that is his life's lot. Clearly, his present state is terrible and only made bearable by the two-edged hope of a happy afterlife following a quick death. Afterlife following a quick death. William Blake here critiques not just the deplorable conditions of the children sold into chimney sweeping, but also the society and particularly its religious aspect that would offer these children palliatives rather than did. That the speaker and Tom Dacre get up from the vision to get back into their dangerous drudgeries suggests that these children cannot help themselves. So it is left to responsible, sensitive adults to do something for them. To do something for them. So this songs. This is a short poem of simple, easy, and to understand. It contains a strong universal message against child labor. Even to this day, we have several children earning their living through hard labor. One of the finest examples that I can give you is the children working in crackers factories in the city of Sivkashi under hazardous conditions. At great risk to their lives, the poet concern is relevant even to this day. That is why William Blake is called visionary poet. In this way, the poem ended with, though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. They need not fear. This is a human misery and exploitation continued for over century, mostly confined to Britain. This horrible employment was stopped by law in 1834 after a long agitation in Parliament. Blake also has other poems on these children in songs of innocence and songs of experience. Songs of innocence and songs of experience. So it is about the William Blake's tiger, the tiger and the chimney sweeper. Tomorrow we'll be discussing some other poem. Okay. See you. Bye.